All right, welcome in, guys. Farzin Vasugian here with you on a Wednesday evening. You know what that means. That means it is time for another episode of the Chief Zone podcast. Hope you're all doing well. It is a short week. It just feels like this week's going by really fast. With Monday Night Football on Monday night. When else would you have Monday Night Football? But that's how you start off your Monday, and then election night and all the craziness that comes with it every year or every other year when they do elections. So it just feels like the week is going by fast. And now you've got another episode of the Chiefs Zone for you guys to listen to and enjoy. So I appreciate all of you guys taking time to join me on this Wednesday night, or if you guys are not watching or listening live, you're checking out the podcast later. Appreciate you guys as well. Definitely appreciate everyone, whether you're watching live or the archive version of the podcast. Not going to be too long of a podcast here since we did a podcast yesterday. We'll go over the Chiefs injury report as today is the first day of practice for the install against the Denver Broncos. Of course, we'll break down the game between the Chiefs and the Broncos, and I'll also go over some of the key games for Week 10 in the NFL. Gonna touch on that, go over some of the key games there. And I also want to get into this Jason Kelce situation. I talked about it over the weekend, but he did issue an apology on ESPN and on his podcast that came out today. On ESPN, he did it at Arrowhead Stadium, which, coincidentally, his brother was also right there when he was doing it in the background, warming up and everything. And the whole situation involved his brother or was about his brother per se. So, yeah, we'll touch on that. See you guys coming in here. Please don't be afraid to chat it up, be part of the conversation. Don't forget, Red Friday live chat will take place this Red Friday, as we do each and every single Red Friday. So make sure you guys join me for that. Come join us for the Red Friday live chat. Bring in your questions, your comments, and we'll read every single one of them this Red Friday. Before we move on, I want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the place where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs. You guys want to go to the Chiefs this Sunday at Arrowhead Stadium. Check them out, taking on the Denver Broncos. College basketball just started up. You've got the NBA, the NHL in full swing right now. College football, it's coming down to the wire this month. A lot of sports action to take in. You guys can get your tickets from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com. New customers can put in my promo code Farzin and you'll save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets, and at checkout, go to, excuse me, got a little glitch here on the live stream. At checkout, put in my promo code Farzin and you'll save $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's get right into it here. I want to start with this Jason Kelce thing. If you guys haven't heard already, which I'm sure everyone has, but just in case you've been under a rock, Jason Kelce was at College Game Day for ESPN, hanging out, having fun, all that good stuff. And the thing about Jason Kelce, unlike his brother Travis and Travis's girlfriend Taylor, Jason doesn't need or doesn't really require security guards to go with him everywhere he goes. So the whole thing with the Jason Kelce story is kind of mind blowing. Just what that turned into. Here's the thing: Jason Kelce does like some tailgating stuff for ESPN Monday Night Countdown to the where he'll go into the parking lot, just have some fun with fans and film some segments and whatnot. To me, you know, you look at a guy like Jason Kelce and you appreciate him. Look at last year when the Chiefs were getting ready to take on the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo for that playoff game. Jason Kelce before the game was tailgating with Bills fans, having a damn good time with that. Even though, you know, the Chiefs and the Bills, they've got a fierce conference rivalry going on, Bills fans were pretty civil and partying with Jason Kelce, drinking beers, having a good time. Bills Mafia, kind of introducing him to the Bills Mafia style of tailgating. Like, you know, it's pretty cool. Jason Kelce does a lot of that kind of thing. And you don't see a lot of athletes do things like that. So he was at College Game Day doing his thing. And while he's making his way to, I don't know where, right? I guess he's leaving. A lot of people are filming him, wanting a high five, wanting a fist bump. Somebody goes up to him and says, "Hey, Jason, what's it like knowing your brother is a 6-letter F word, the homophobic slur, for dating Taylor Swift?" Which is, what kind of an insult is that? You're saying someone's brother, you're attempting to insult them to use a homophobic slur for dating a woman. Do you not understand how stupid that insult is in the first place? Do people not think about that kind of thing? I've never understood that. Anyway, I'm trying to comprehend stupid behavior. But anyway, the guy's following Jason with his phone, filming him, and that's where it gets annoying. Jason was actually ignoring it at first, but the guy keeps following Jason, and I think anyone in that situation would snap. It's like, dude, you're gonna keep following me and keep saying the same thing over and over again. So Jason, like anyone, if you give a damn about your family, assuming you have a good relationship with your family, if you're hearing those kinds of words being said about your family, took the phone out of that jackass's hand, smashed it through to the ground, and walked off. Then there's another video clip out there. This is from somebody else that uploaded this. The guy actually shoves Jason. Jason then gets in this guy's face. That guy starts backpedaling, and Jason says, "Who's the F word now? Who's the F word now?" It's like, listen, for people who are like, "Oh, Jason Kelce also used the slur." He wasn't using it. It's not like Jason Kelce just walked up to the guy and called him that. Jason Kelce is taking that guy's words and using it back at him. Are people from the LGBT community pissed at Jason Kelce for how he responded? No. It'd be a much different story if Jason Kelce just showed up and walked up to a fan and used that word. So context is important here. I know TMZ had a field day with their headlines. Oh, breaking news. Jason Kelce used a homophobic slur. Yeah. While quoting that guy and using his quote against him. That's how it was used. By the way, the guy, I know Jason Kelce did his apology on ESPN and on his podcast. And by the way, I got to criticize Jason Kelce. Why? Why did you apologize? There was no reason to apologize for that. If he said, "Hey, that could have been handled better," okay, fine. But there was no reason for Jason Kelce to apologize. I don't know if this was an ESPN thing or if he had a publicist that said, "Hey, you gotta do this." But I was actually kind of disappointed, not gonna lie, that he had to apologize for this. I thought it was dumb. But anyway, but what was funny to me, because there are other video clips that have surfaced since then. The kid, I don't know or what, the kid actually, was starting shit. Hey, listen, I'm just gonna call it like I see it. The kid who was starting shit with Jason, shoved him and wanted his phone back. He does the whole, "Give me my phone back." So you're going to go up to someone and make fun of their brother. And then, when you act like a jackass and you lose your phone, you're going to do the whole, give me my phone back. Like, you know how big of a bitch you look going from 100 to 0. I mean, come on. That seriously has to be the biggest bitch move ever. Acting like a tough guy, thinking you're on social media, and then you do the whole, "Give me my phone back." I couldn't help it. That was just too funny. I saw some former Eagle, and I apologize. I can't remember who it was. But I guess they did a podcast or something, and they did the whole kind of like Mike. I think Mike Tyson may have said something to the effect of this, where it's like social media has made people very comfortable to say things that they would never say to someone in their face. I think the internet's kind of there are a lot of great things about the internet, such as those podcasts and live streams. But then the internet's also to the point where it's like, okay, the internet was a mistake when you see certain things that are out there. I don't know, man. It's just wild to me what some people are willing to do. But listen, I'm disappointed. I get Jason needed to maybe clear the air about his usage of the word, but again, it's not like he used it as an attempt to be mean or anything. Like that guy's got you got to stand up for yourself at some point. Someone's being rude. Okay, well you gotta let them know about it. I had no problems at all with what Jason Kelsey did, and I'll leave it at that. Let's move on. I want to talk about this for a while. We talked about this during last night's podcast, but it's worth bringing up again. There are a lot of people out there making a big deal about the fact that Kansas City is not blowing teams out, even though they're the reigning back-to-back Super Bowl champions and they're on a quest to three-peat and they've won 14 in a row. They're 8-0. They're the only undefeated team in the NFL. There are some people trying to discredit the Chiefs in saying that they're not the best team in the NFL for the sole reason that they do not blow teams out. Essentially, they don't cover the spread in a lot of these games. If you're into sports betting like I am, you know they don't cover the spread in a lot of their games. Okay. Let's talk about teams that do cover the spread. Let's talk about those teams. This is going to be a fun subject. Let's talk about this. Do you guys, can we all agree on something? When it comes to the point differential, the higher your point differential is, that's a strong indication that you win a few games in blowout fashion. Is that fair to say? We can agree on that, right? So let's look at the top 5 teams in the NFL last year when it came to point differential. Baltimore plus 203. That's huge. And yeah, Baltimore blew out a shit ton of teams last week. Dallas, number 2, plus 194. San Francisco, plus 193. Buffalo, plus 140. They were red hot from the midway point all the way into the playoffs. Miami, plus 105. Remember, they were blowing out some teams, especially in the first half of the season. So the top 5 teams last year when it came to point differential, Baltimore, Dallas, San Francisco, Buffalo, and Miami. And by the way, for the record, number 6 on that list is the Chiefs, but there's a significant gap between the Dolphins at number 5 and the Chiefs at number 6 last year. Let's see. Again, top 5 teams: Ravens, Cowboys, 49ers, Bills, and Dolphins. Number 2 on that list is Dallas. Dallas was one and done in the playoffs, right? Do I have that right? Yeah, they lost to the Packers. What about the other 4 teams? Miami, Buffalo, San Francisco, and Baltimore. Those 4 teams blew out a lot of teams last year. What do all 4 of those teams have in common? Oh boy, I'm trying to think. What do they have in common other than they were in the top 5 in point differential last year? Oh yeah, they all lost to the Chiefs in the playoffs. The Chiefs blew out the Dolphins, and they had a 1-score win over the Bills, Ravens, and 49ers. So this whole thing about blowing teams out, okay, that's cool. I know as fans, we may have an unofficial category for blowout wins. We have that next to the win-loss column, I guess. But at the end of the day, what does that mean? You're just blowing teams out. Okay, cool. Like, listen, it's nice when you get wins like that, especially if you attend the game. Obviously, that's got to be an enjoyable experience. It's got to be well worth the money. But what does that mean? I mean, if it's not a playoff game, it's just a win at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you win by 1 point or you win by 100 points. When I look at last year's top 5 teams when it came to point differentials, the Dallas Cowboys, they're on that list. They were a one and done team. And then the other 4 teams, Baltimore, San Francisco, Buffalo, and Miami, 4 teams that blew out a lot of teams last year, they all lost to the Chiefs in the playoffs. A Chiefs team last year that had a lot of struggles. A Chiefs team that was very vulnerable. And everyone said, yep, this is for sure the year where the Chiefs are not going to reach the AFC title game. And they got closer and closer, and people were just like, shit, this Chiefs team, they flipped the switch in the playoffs. You look right now in the NFL, and obviously the Chiefs have the best record in the NFL. But again, as we've already established here, they're not blowing teams out. Where do they rank in that category? Let's see, 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The Chiefs are 8th. They rank 8th in the NFL in point differential with plus 56. I'm just going to read you the list real quickly. Lions plus 110, Bills plus 87. So it goes the Lions, the Bills, Commanders, Steelers, Ravens, Vikings, and Chargers. Those 7 teams all have a better win point differential than the Chiefs. Obviously, a team like the Chargers, they are ahead of the Chiefs by just 2 points. The Vikings by 3 points. You get the idea. And listen, Detroit, yeah, they are by far the best team in the NFL when it comes to that category of point differential. But again, what does that mean in the long run? Like, okay, you're blowing some teams out. Let me look at Detroit's schedule, because I'll be honest, they're an NFC team, so I don't follow the Lions as closely as I do some of the AFC teams. Okay, they had an overtime win over the Rams. They lost to the Bucks. They beat the Cardinals by 1 possession. They had a one-sided win over Seattle. Okay, it's not too impressive. They blew out the Cowboys 47-9. That's not entirely impressive. I mean, listen, a win's a win, don't get me wrong. And it was on the road in Dallas, but I don't think a lot of people are having issues beating Dallas this year. They beat the Vikings, gave the Vikings their first loss of the season by 2 points. But again, hey, doesn't matter by 2 points or by 2 million points. They beat the Titans convincingly 52-14, and they also beat the Packers 24-14. Okay, so I'm just looking at the schedule here. So when people say the Lions are blowing teams out, so they only have 2 blowout wins, which, okay, 2 is still a lot up to this point in the season. It's Dallas and Tennessee. Because when I hear people say, oh, the Lions are the better team because they blow people out, well, they make it sound like they do it every single game when that's not necessarily the case. They have one-sided victories over the Cowboys and the Titans, games that were essentially over going into the fourth quarter. And then they have a pretty big win over the Seahawks. Was that game over going into the fourth quarter? Let me check. Score was 35-20. Seattle got a touchdown very early in the fourth quarter, making it 35-27. Okay, so it's not like Seattle was dead in the water going into the fourth quarter. They had life in that game. Okay, fine. What's the purpose of this discussion here? There are a lot of people that just want to write off Kansas City because they just aren't in the top 5 when it comes to point differential. Let me just say something here. Remember in 2018, in Patrick Mahomes' first season as a starting quarterback, the Chiefs started the season, 6-0, I think. I can't remember actually what the Chiefs started as. Because isn't this Patrick's first time starting 4-0 or 5-0? So I don't remember exactly. Let me pull up the 2018 schedule, because I do have a point I want to make here. So I just want to make sure I'm right about this. Bear with me one moment. Should have had this ready before the podcast, but we'll get through it. Let's see. Chiefs 2018 schedule. They started 5-0. Yeah, they started 5-0 that year. Okay. They lost in week 6 to the Patriots. That was a Sunday Night Football game, if I recall correctly. 43-40. Patriots got a game-winning field goal as time expired in that game. I remember listening to Stephen A. Smith the next morning, and he said that the Chiefs looked like the better team. And I'm listening to that. I'm like, wait a minute. The Chiefs were the better team? They didn't win that game. And then I realized it's like, oh, okay. You kind of forget. New England, that was, the tail end of their dynasty. They went on to win the Super Bowl that year. As we remember, the Patriots beat the Chiefs again that year in the AFC Championship game. But the point I'm trying to make here is the Patriots, that was, a part of their dynasty. And when Stephen A is saying, oh, the Chiefs were the better team, which doesn't make sense because the Chiefs lost that game, you realize that the popular thing to do when you're on the national stage is to say something negative about the best team in the NFL, because your viewers do like that a little bit. Yeah, you're on a big stage. I get it. You gotta You got to do something to keep that crowd, your viewers, all that stuff. Get the clicks on ESPN.com or the YouTube channel, your social media, whatever it is. So at the end of the day, and by the way, I'm not breaking any news saying this. This has been said millions of times, especially this week of all weeks. I guess because the Chiefs were on primetime recently. A lot of people are saying the Chiefs are the Patriots, which is true. They are. And at the same time, people are also pointing out the fact that this Chiefs team, even when things are going right for the Chiefs, when they're winning, if someone in the media like Stephen A. Smith or Mark Schlereth or whoever on ESPN, FS1, CBS Sports, any of the other national sports networks on TV or on the radio, when they have a hot take where they say something negative about the best team in the NFL, which right now is the Kansas City Chiefs, people like that. People will gravitate towards that. They're like, wait a minute, this guy's smart. He's on a national stage. He knows ball clearly. If he's got a high level job like this, and this guy just said he doesn't think the best team in the NFL is actually the best team. He thinks that there's one big glaring weakness to where they could be dethroned this season. People like to hear opinions like that. So, and by the way, there was someone from CBS Sports. I guess this guy was a contestant on The Bachelor. It's just the dumbest show in the world. Like the concept of that show. I've always joked about that show. It's like, okay, you make out and you sleep with one person, and then you let me go, and you're like, yeah, next. I'm sorry, I just had to. I gotta say it like I see it. But anyway, I guess he was once a contestant on The Bachelor. He's now an expert on CBS Sports Network. And I remember he made some comment after the Chiefs beat the Raiders, saying that they are the best team, but they're not that good. Something along those lines. It's like, wait a minute, that doesn't even make sense. I remember Michael Bisping, the former UFC middleweight champion. He defended his belt against Hall of Famer and Dan Henderson. And he also did a radio show at the time in Sirius XM. And, Michael Bisping was kind of a villain in the UFC. And he was taking some calls right after his pay-per-view fight. And somebody called in and was like, you won the fight, but you didn't dominate the fight. It's like, what are you even talking about? Now you're just discrediting a champion who defended his belt here. So anyway, the purpose here is, yeah, you're going to get a lot of these negative type of comments. Anyone that will try to do their best to create a downfall when they're not going to even come close to being able to do so, people will do whatever they can to draw some favoritism from the viewers. So at the end of the day, don't buy into this crap about the Chiefs not blowing teams out. So what? Last I recall, they're winning every single game. They've won 14 in a row. How many teams in NFL history have won 14 in a row? Let's look that up here before we move on. List of NFL's longest winning streaks, according to Wikipedia. Let's see. In the regular season, this doesn't include regular season and playoffs. Okay, here we go. Total regular season and playoffs. The Patriots had 21 at one point. The Packers had 19. The Bears on multiple occasions from the 1930s and the 1940s. Yeah, they had a couple. The Dolphins, obviously, from 1972 to 1973. The Chiefs are 8th. They have the 8th biggest winning streak in NFL history. And that's an active one right now. 14 in a row. In order to join third place, which is tied with 5 teams, and the Bears are on that list twice, you got to win 4 more. So this is one of the best winning streaks in NFL history. And people want to discredit that. Again, people out there want that favoritism from the viewers when they say these kinds of things on the national media level. So there's that. All right, let's move on here and get to our games from Week 10, the top games from Week 10. Starting tomorrow, a big AFC North matchup between the Bengals and the Ravens. The Bengals, even though they're 4-5, they're not terribly behind in the AFC wildcard picture. Although a win here could really put them in within reaching distance of the division. I still don't think they're going to win the division, though. I think Pittsburgh is too much right now. I really do, especially defensively. But the thing about the Bengals, like, again, look at the Bengals. Who have they defeated? I know they've put up a lot of points. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, they're putting up massive numbers. But who have they defeated this year? They beat the Panthers. That was their first win of the season. Okay. Their second win of the season was against the Giants, and that was a very low-scoring game. And then they beat Cleveland. Not the highest scoring of games. I think Cincinnati got a special teams touchdown on that one. And then they blew out the Raiders last week. Okay, so all of the teams you've defeated have, I believe, 2 or fewer wins. How many wins does Cleveland have this year? I believe 3. No, they're 2-7. New York, I know, is a 2-win team. And Carolina, I think, is a 2-win team also. So all the teams you've defeated this year, the 4 teams you've won against, all have 2 wins. So when it comes to tougher competition, like the Ravens, like the Chargers, and back-to-back road games, both of them primetime games. By the way, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers next. So the next 3 games the Bengals are playing are all playoff teams. And after that Philadelphia game, there were 9 games left on the schedule. And Joe Burrow made a comment saying that they need to win 7 of 9 to make the playoffs. Okay. Now you need 6 of 8. Good luck these next 3 games. And then after that, you got Dallas. Should be a winnable game. You got Tennessee. Should be a winnable game. Cleveland. I mean, their defense is good, but okay. And then the last 2 games, Denver and Pittsburgh. And Denver is a team that's in playoff position right now. So good luck with that. You got some playoff teams there, and you're not beating playoff teams. You're literally beating 2-win teams. Have fun with that. Yeah, I have the Ravens dominating tomorrow. And it's at home. I know it was a closer game last time, but every game is a different game. I really do think the Ravens are going to just blow them out. Lamar Jackson having a really good, maybe his best year statistically speaking, and might be on his way to an MVP. Derrick Henry having a phenomenal season as well. So I do expect the Ravens to do a lot of damage to the Bengals defense. We're back overseas. The Giants and the Panthers, 2-win teams, are going to be playing in the morning. So I'm sure a lot of people are thrilled to wake up and see that. Saying that with a lot of sarcasm in my voice, in case you're going to tell. Listen, I don't like the international games, but I do like waking up to an NFL game in the morning at 8:30 Central Time. So that's the only good thing I have to say about that game. Bills and Colts. Listen, I do like the Colts, and I do like the direction they're going in with Josh Allen. Or I'm sorry, not Josh Allen. Joe Flacco. But man, I still think there are some holes on that football team. Meanwhile, the Bills, Allen's playing some great football this year. This is the best Allen's looked when it comes to taking care of the football. By far the best he's looked this in any season. But I do think the Bills are going to continue their winning ways. But I do think this is going to be closer than some people might anticipate. That's just how I feel about that game. The 49ers are 4-4 right now. Listen, we see this sometimes. Some teams are at 500 or just a little bit below 500, and they go on a surge. I think the 49ers, that surge needs to start now, and it starts against Tampa Bay, who we know they're missing some guys. So this is a perfect opportunity for the 49ers to get going and get on a winning streak and try to move ahead of the Cardinals in the division, because this is not a very strong NFC West. And the Cardinals are taking advantage of that right now. They're 5-4. So I'm very interested to see if the 49ers can find a way to move ahead in the division. Speaking of the Cardinals, they're playing the Jets this week, a Jets team that got their first win since firing Robert Saleh and since adding Devontae Adams. I got to go with the Cardinals, though. I just think even though, we haven't seen a lot of consistency from them. They've won, 3 in a row? and they're starting to look good. Kyler Murray's looking good. I really like James Conner. I think he's having a very good season as well. So I got to go with the Cardinals in that game. Some of the other Week 10 games, Steelers Commanders. That's a really good game. I mean, that could have easily been the Sunday night game. Instead, you have Lions Texans. I really do like Jaden Daniels. He's going to be rookie of the year, no question about it. But I do think, you're going to run into the rookie learning curve and hit that rookie wall from time to time. And I think this is going to be one of those times against a very stout Steelers defense, which historically, that's just what the Steelers are known for over the years. So got to go with the Steelers in that one there, one of those key games. And then let's go to that Sunday night football game. Our last one here before we break down Chiefs Broncos. Lions and Texans. This is pretty huge. I know the Chiefs fans would love to have the best record in the NFL, but the Lions are not an AFC team. So a Lions win would be very beneficial because if you can create a gap between yourselves and the Texans, you can maybe afford a loss to the Texans in mid to late December, especially when you have that very crazy schedule where it's like, 3 games in the span of 11 days. And by the way, let me say this. Do short weeks really phase players anymore? Is that really a thing? Because I don't think it is. I really don't think that's the case. What's the spread in the Jets game? It says Arizona off. OFF. I don't know what that means. And that's on ESPN's. They're using their betting thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I've never seen that before. I mean, it says Philly 7.5. It says Detroit 3.5. LA Rams 1 or -1. It's like, what does that mean for Arizona? I mean, maybe you guys know. I have no idea what that means. But I got to go with the Lions because they're blowing everyone out. They're the best team in the NFL doing that. And the Texans, unfortunately, they are kind of on the downward slope here because, listen, we talked about injuries a lot on this podcast this season. Chiefs have been doing a damn good job of not letting that impact them. Obviously, they've done some things when it comes to the transaction wire, going out there, getting DeAndre Hopkins to help the offense out. Also got Juju Smith-Schuster right before the regular season. But the Texans, man, they're not able to let that not impact them. Unfortunately, they're letting it hurt them, and they've been slipping lately. So I got to go with the Lions in this one. Honestly, that Steelers Commanders game should have been Sunday Night Football, but it is what it is. Yeah, you don't know what that means either. Yeah, couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you. Okay, let's get into the game between the Chiefs and the Broncos this Sunday at Arrowhead. It's going to be a 12 o'clock game. Again, reminder, 12 o'clock game. We don't get many of those anymore. Those things never happen in Kansas City. One of the very rare 12 o'clock games. In fact, I believe this is one of 2 12 o'clock games on a Sunday. I know the Chiefs have another 12 o'clock game. Yeah, okay. So the Chiefs have the Denver for 12 o'clock, Panthers 12 o'clock later this month. And then next month, you have Cleveland for a Sunday 12. Then you have Houston for a Saturday 12 game, Saturday 12 p.m. game. And then Christmas against the Steelers, that's also a 12 o'clock game. But in terms of Sunday 3 o'clock, only 3 of those this season. So there's that. Okay, let's get into this game. Brad Allen will be the referee, so you guys all know who to Venmo and who to bribe in this game. This is going to be on CBS. You're going to get Kevin Harlan and Trent Green for the second CBS game in a row. We're getting the former Chiefs Pro Bowl quarterback Trent Green and former Chiefs voice Kevin Harlan. They'll be calling this game on CBS. So I'm sure a lot of Chiefs fans are going to appreciate that. The Chiefs, they are 8-point betting favorites. That is the biggest point spread in all of Week 10. The Chiefs are a -380 money line favorite, while the Broncos are at +300. And the over-under for this game, a little lower in this one compared to what it was last week at 45.5 for Chiefs Bucks. This is 41.5 for Chiefs Broncos. Broncos head coach Sean Payton. I don't really need to go into Payton's resume because you guys all are familiar with him, what he did in New Orleans. Yeah, he did have a suspension 1 year, so he assisted a college team one season, but very successful, brought a Super Bowl to New Orleans, their only one in franchise history. Offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi, who's got a lot of familiarity with Sean Payton. They worked together multiple times. Lombardi was the defensive line coach at Dayton and Bucknell. I laugh at that because every time I think of Bucknell, you already know where I'm going with this. I think of KU basketball. Oh boy, that's okay. KU's won a couple of championships since then. It's all good. But yeah, that's what I always think of whenever I hear about Bucknell. I don't even know what kind of a football program does Bucknell have. I couldn't tell you, but yeah, coach there. Also coach offensive tackles, running backs. He's done offense and defense over the years, but when he got to the NFL, started as a defensive assistant for the Falcons. Then he joined the Saints in 2007 and made the transition to being an offensive assistant under Sean Payton. He left the Saints. He was there from 2007 to 2013, coach under Jim Mora, Jim Caldwell. Then he came back to New Orleans with a bigger role as a quarterback's coach, working very closely with Drew Brees from 2016 to 2020. And then, they go their separate ways, do their own thing, and they reunite once again, this time in Denver. So obviously a very close relationship between Joe Lombardi and Sean Payton. When you look at the Broncos offense led by their rookie quarterback, Bo Nix, they rank 25th in total offense, 27th in passing, 15th in rushing. Casey is 14th, so they're very similar there. 23rd in points per game, scoring just over 20 points per game. And when you look at Bo Nix, the rookie quarterback they got this season, in fact, I think he was the last of the 6 quarterbacks that were taken in the first round. I think that it was 6 quarterbacks taken with the first 12 or 13 picks. Because the Raiders were right behind all those teams. And as soon as Bo Nix went, the Raiders had no choice but to get Brock Bowers, who's a phenomenal tight end. But they were definitely in the market for a quarterback. So the Broncos got the last quarterback they needed. And listen, he's one of the better rookie quarterbacks this season. 1,700 yards, second most among rookie quarterbacks behind Jaden Daniels. So he's performing a little better than Caleb Williams. He's got 8 touchdown passes on the season. Daniels and Williams, Caleb Williams, that is, they have the most among rookies with 9, so he's not too far behind there. But Bo Nix does have 6 interceptions. That's the most among rookie quarterbacks. He's also got 4 rushing touchdowns, which is pretty good. I believe that's 4th most by a quarterback this season. He's also been sacked 15 times on the year. When you look at what he's done running the football, 58 runs for 295 yards. That's the 4th most among quarterbacks in the NFL. Nix and Daniels are tied 3rd among QBs in rushing touchdowns. Okay, so I said they were 4th. My bad. They're actually 3rd in that category. Recent games, they got destroyed by Baltimore last week. Bo Nix in that Baltimore game, he was 19 of 33 for 223 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, and was sacked 4 times in that game. To Tavius Robinson of the Ravens, he had a pair of sacks on Bo Nix, so he had a nice day in that game as Baltimore blew them out of the waters. Against Carolina the week before, pretty good game for the Broncos and a good game for Nix. He was 28 of 37 for 284, 3 touchdowns, no picks, so a much better game that week for Bo Nix against a weak Carolina team. Javonte Williams, their running back, he's got 387 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's averaging just under 4 yards per carry, but Javonte Williams also a big part of their pass catching game. He has the 2nd most receptions with 29 and also the 2nd most receiving yards with 216. I remember Jamal Charles was like one of the main pass catchers for the Chiefs in 2014 when the Chiefs didn't. That was the year the Chiefs did not throw a touchdown pass to a wide receiver. Remember that stat? That was also Travis Kelce's first actual season because he missed his entire rookie year due to a knee injury. Their actual leader in receptions and receiving yards is Cortland Sutton. He's got 36 catches, 499 yards, and 2 touchdown grabs. So he leads the team in all three of those categories. He's at 222 yards in the last two games combined. So he and Cortland Sutton, and I know last week was a blowout, so a lot of garbage time stats there, but he and Cortland Sutton have definitely been getting into a rhythm lately. So it's going to be very important for Trent McDuffie and this Chiefs defense, the secondary, to limit Cortland Sutton and not let Sutton and Nix connect on so many passes this Sunday at Arrowhead. You also have little Jordan Humphrey. He's got 21 catches for 188 yards. Tight end Adam Trotman doesn't get involved much, but when he does, he has 7 catches for 121 yards and 1 touchdown. He's averaging more than 17 yards per catch. So that is pretty good, even though he hasn't caught a lot of passes. When he does, he definitely makes the most of it. Marvin Mims Jr., who they drafted last year, speedster wide receiver. He's one of their return specialists, which we will get into later on. And their rookie, Troy Franklin, who was taken in the 4th round, which I was actually surprised he fell that much into the 4th round, into day 3 out of Oregon, though. But Troy Franklin, also part of that wide receiver unit. When you look at their offensive line, a pretty stout offensive line. This is actually one of the better offensive lines that the Chiefs are going to be facing this season. So that battle in the trenches right there with Karlaftis, Turk, Chris Jones, that's going to be a fun battle to watch this Sunday. When you look at Alex Forsyth, he's allowed 2 sacks on the season. Their left tackle and their left guard. Garrett Bowles, their left tackle, he's allowed 13 pressures. Ben Powers, their left guard, has allowed 11 pressures on the season. So not a lot of weaknesses on this Broncos offensive line, but if they have any, it's definitely that left side of the offensive line there with Garrett Bowles and then Ben Powers on the interior there. So very interesting to see what the Chiefs are going to do in that battle there at the line of scrimmage. Going to the Broncos defense, coordinated by Vance Joseph. He is the former Broncos head coach. He coached him for 2 seasons, 2017 and 2018. Stepped away, went to Arizona to be the defensive coordinator, and came back to Denver. So he is back where he was. And hey, Denver is doing some really good things defensively. They're 6th in total defense, right behind Kansas City. They're 6th against the pass, 9th against the run, 3rd in points per game allowed, and they have the 8th best red zone defense in the NFL. And by the way, being 3rd in points per game allowed, Kansas City is 4th in that category. So some similarities between the Chiefs and the Broncos when it comes to those two defenses there. Their leading tackler, safety Brandon Jones, has got 65. And then their quarterback, Riley Moss, and their linebacker, Cody Barton, each have 55. Usually not a good thing when you have defensive backs as your leaders and tackles there, or at least 1 and 2, or the second one is tied for 2. But this is a very physical Broncos defense where they do have their linebackers their defensive backs getting involved and making some plays on the defensive end there. When you look at their front 7 in that 3-4 scheme, Nick Bonito has 6 sacks on the season and 7 tackles for a loss. He's definitely the leader of that defensive front there. They also have Jonathan Cooper with 5.5 sacks. Zach Allen, their defensive end, he's got 4 sacks. Their other defensive end, John Franklin Myers, he's also got 4 sacks. Zach Allen, by the way, has 10 tackles for a loss, leading the team in that category. Pat Surtain II, obviously his father, Patrick Surtain, a former Kansas City Chief, also spent some time with the Miami Dolphins. I was excited when the Chiefs got Patrick Surtain, but just bummed out that his time in Kansas City didn't pan out. I remember when the Chiefs got him and Ty Law, and I was very excited for that duo. And, they weren't Pro Bowlers by all means, but I think they did some good things as cornerbacks in Kansas City that, maybe didn't show up on the stat sheet. And I think, it's one of those things where you have to watch the games to appreciate what they were doing there. But Pat Surtain, the second, Patrick Mahomes in his press conference today said Pat Surtain might be the best quarterback in the NFL. He's definitely up there with Trent McDuffie, top 5 for sure. He's got 3 picks on the season for 128 yards and 6 pass deflections. He got a pick against Carolina a couple of weeks ago. And then earlier this season against the Raiders, he got 2 interceptions, one of them a 100-yard pick 6. Actually, the Raiders were up 10-0 in that game, and they were about to take a 17-3 lead, but Gardner Minshew threw an interception to Surtain, and he went from one end zone all the way to the other, 100 yards. And I remember there was a flag on that play, and the refs picked it up. I just remember seeing that when it happened. So Pat Surtain, you gotta definitely be aware of him. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, as I mentioned earlier, from what Mahomes was saying. And what he did right there was clutch. That was a massive 14-point swing, and that allowed the Broncos to basically cruise the rest of the game. And that was a momentum shift right there. You go up 17-3 against the Broncos, there's a chance Denver might not come back in that game. So for him to get that pick six there was clutch. I remember Jalen Watson had a very similar pick six for the Chiefs in his second NFL game in 2022. Remember that? The first ever Thursday night game on Prime? That was a huge. Those are when you get 100-yard, 99-yard pick sixes. Those are the biggest ones. Those are the biggest ones for sure. Some of their defensive backs, Brandon Jones, Riley Moss, I mentioned earlier, Jaquan McMillan, and their linebacker, Alex Singleton, they all have one pick each. Very, very physical Denver defense that can create some problems. So I know Kareem Hunt, his yard per carry average in some games this season has not been very good. Look, I know some of the trick plays have not worked for Kansas City this season. So I'm very curious if Andy Reid brings out some of the creative plays from the playbook and uses them in this game, because you got to find ways to throw off this Denver defense. This is by far the best defense you have played this season. And they just struggled not too long ago against the Ravens, less than a week ago. So I'm very curious, because the thing with Mahomes, a lot of people are saying Mahomes in the offense will figure it out, which they have the last few weeks. We've gone over this on last night's podcast. Third down defense, red zone offense, both have improved by a wide margin since the bye week. So I'm very interested in seeing what this Chiefs team is going to do. Offensive line's got to play well. I mean, the Chiefs are going to be facing a very strong duo on the edge there in Benito and Cooper. And I would argue there's a chance those two guys have an opportunity to be difference makers in this football game. They really do. So for crying out loud, and I've said this many times, I'll say it again, have a tight end and or a running back ready to block, because Patrick Mahomes is going to need that in this game. 1,000%. Quick look at special teams. Ben Kotwicka, hope I said that right. He coached special teams for the Jets from 2007 to 2013. Eventually became the special teams coordinator with the Jets. Then he did it for the Redskins, the Falcons, then left the NFL and became the director of player development for Army. Then he came back to the NFL as the assistant special teams coach for the Vikings. And now he's back as the special teams coordinator in Denver starting last year, being part of Sean Payton's inaugural staff there. So that is their special teams coordinator's background there. Will Lutz, the kicker, 18 of 19 field goals this season. He missed a 50-yarder against the Jets. So overall, a very consistent kicker, kind of like Harrison Butker. Their punter, Riley Dixon, just an average punter, nothing too special with him. Their kick returner, wide receiver Marvin Mims Jr., I mentioned earlier, and former Chief Tremont Smith, cornerback. They each have 6 returns. Tremont Smith has 170 yards off kick returns, and Mims has 167 yards. So very, very, very similar stats. 6 kick returns each. One has 170 yards, and the other one 3 yards less. Marvin Mims also handles the punt returns, and he returns a lot of punts. He has 17 punt returns for 194 yards. He has the 6th most punt return yards, and he's tied for 5th most punt return attempts this season. He's averaging 11.4 yards per punt return. That's one of the best in the NFL. And he is also tied. I don't have where he ranks in that category, oddly enough. Let me pull it up real quickly. It won't be won't take too long to get, but he has 13 fair catches on the season. And the reason I'm making a big deal about that, if this guy is one of the top 5 when it comes to punt return attempts, and he fair catches a lot of balls, a lot of punts. Yeah, he's tied 3rd with 13 with Jaden Reed of the Packers. Yeah, Denver forces a lot of punts, you guys. Denver's defense forces a lot of punts, and that doesn't surprise me because they're top 10 in red zone defense, points per game allowed, against the run, against the pass, and in total defense. I'm sure there's a website out there that shows how many punts a defense has forced, but I couldn't find that for Denver. Yeah, division games are tough, Jeremy. I agree. And I saw Matthew mention this could be a low-scoring game. Yeah, that's very likely as well. I don't think it's going to be too low scoring. I could see both teams maybe picking it up in the fourth quarter when both defenses maybe start to gas out a little bit. But I do think the Chiefs will pull away in this one. I do think this one's going to be a dogfight. I'll say this. I know the Chiefs have been involved in a lot of close games this year. I do think this is going to be the toughest game of the year. I really do. And listen, this is not the Denver of old where Patrick Mahomes just had his way with Denver each and every single time up until the last meeting where Mahomes was 11-0 against Denver all time up until that game. This might be the best Broncos team the Chiefs will face or have faced in the Patrick Mahomes era. But I still think the Chiefs can come away with a win here. I think this Chiefs defense, they can do a lot of things that this rookie has never seen before. And Spags is going to cook some things up for this defense against Bo Nix. Patrick Mahomes, he's been playing better football lately. Now, DeAndre Hopkins, he's looked great in 2 games with the Chiefs, especially last week. Travis Kelce, he's playing much better. He's at least 70 yards in 4 of the last 5 games. But how do you do against Denver? This is by far the toughest defense the Chiefs will have faced. So this is going to be a very big test for Patrick Mahomes this Sunday. Can the Chiefs carry over what they've done recently? I think they will. I don't think it's going to be a clean game. I think Mahomes will throw at least one pick in this one. But I do think that the Chiefs will pull away in this one. My final score prediction, I'm going 24-20 Kansas City. That is my score prediction here. 24-20, Chiefs will win and improve to 9-0 for the 3rd time in franchise history. Appreciate you guys joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. A reminder, Red Friday live chat this Friday evening. Join me for that. Sunday, because we have a 12 p.m. kickoff game, the pregame live chat will begin at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. So join me for that. Join me for the halftime live stream as we recap the first half. And then join me after the game. We will do the Chiefs Zone Podcast live, and we will take your video calls. It only had a couple last podcasts, and that was because it was a late Monday night. A lot of people probably needed to stay quiet or probably went to bed already. So hopefully we have a lot more people joining us and calling in for this one, since it'll be in the middle of the afternoon. So make sure you guys join me. And that is what you have to look forward to with the live streams and the podcast in the coming days. Once again, I am Farzin Vasugian. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. If you haven't done so already, please tell a friend about the podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@thechiefszone. Other than that, I will talk to you all later. Take care.